Thank you, good evening. I haven't prepared a PowerPoint presentation because I knew that coming to this group with all the techies in here that I wasn't going to stand a chance. And with Juliana's presentation, I definitely know I made the right decision, so well done. I couldn't have put that video together. I've got two stories that I can share with you this evening. Stephen asked me to come along and just have a chat because I've built tech startup businesses and I've been reasonably successful and I've inspired large audiences. So I've done a fair bit of public speaking in the past. And Stephen said, come and talk to these guys. And I said, well, what about? And he said, well, whatever you like. So as I said, it's going to be from the heart, not the chart. It's unrehearsed, but I have two stories I can go down. The first one is of a business that I built, a startup in 1990, which reached 38th in the Times Profit Track 100 in 2008, turning over £30 million a year, all on the back of tech, generating around about 6,000 buy-to-let mortgage leads a month, which went into hibernation in 2009. Or I can talk to you about the fact that I bought my first property at the age of 19, and when I did put my business into hibernation in 2009, retired at the age of 41, and then went on to get completely bored laying on the beach because I don't play golf, didn't know what to do, 41 years of age. So I started blogging about my landlord experiences and got 173,000 subscribers to my blog in that period of time. So choice is yours. Which story do you want to hear? Who wants to hear the finance story? Okay, a few. And who wants to hear the property blogging story? I was going to say, that's pretty even. Slightly more to the blogging side. Okay, we'll talk a bit about both. Background then, grew up on a council estate in the West Midlands, just on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. Religious family background, left school at 16, virtually no qualifications apart from the fact that I could spin on my head. I've always been a little bit of an exhibitionist, and I'm sure that if I don't tell everybody, because Stephen Pengilly, who's here, worked for me for many, many years. I was a professional breakdancer, but well in the past, and as you can see, I'm not built for that anymore. So that was the background. My parents moved over to Norfolk at the age of 17, dragged me kicking and screaming, really hated it. I'd been going into nightclubs, of course, from the age of 14, performing professionally as a breakdancer, and when I got to King's Lynn, which is where we arrived, there was no nightclub. And nobody had heard of breakdancing. So I went to work in a factory, and at the age of 19, I was realising that this isn't actually going very far and life's a bit of a bummer. And one of my old schoolmates, who was also a breakdancer, came down to see me, and he was driving, I don't know if any of you, a few of you will be old enough to remember, Fiat X19. Remember those little cars? A bit like a baby Ferrari. It was at the time. Anyway, it had the pop-up lights and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, bloody hell, you know, I've really missed out. Are you still a breakdancer? You've got that? And he said, no, I'm a financial consultant. Really? Hang on, you left the school at the same time as me. We did the same things, grew up in the same area. And he said, no, I sell life insurance, and why don't you come along? And he re-recruited me basically into flogging life insurance. So that was my start into financial services. Realised that I didn't want to sell life insurance at 9 o'clock at night to first-time buyers who just bought their house and all of that sort of stuff. So got headhunted by a big American bank, Citibank, and I just rattling through the story very, very quickly. Bought my first house when I was 19 years of age, after 9 months in financial services. I was doing quite well. Bear in mind, it was, 1987-ish at this sort of time, 1988, and I was making 38 grand a year. So I was doing okay at that time. And then I got headhunted by Citibank, so bought my first house. It was boom time, 1987, 1988. Sold it, 20 grand deposit, bought a house in Old Catton, moved to Norwich. So I got this 73 grand, 3-bedroom bungalow in Old Catton. And I was working at Citibank, who'd guaranteed my salary now at 38 grand a year plus bonuses. Had the file of facts and all that sort of stuff. And life was really flying for me. Decided to leave Citibank at that time and took a really, really big risk. Citibank were lending up to from 100,000 to 1 million to professionals. And there was a gap in the market because their parent company, Citicorp, was lending 5 million and above. And what my little team was at Citibank was broking the bit in the middle. So outsourcing the finance to other lending institutions and charging fees for it. And that gap we called the money centre. And some of you who've been around in Norwich might have seen the little money centre cars driving around up until 2009. I think there was about 100 and odd little black cars with the money centre. Did you have one, Stephen? You did? Yeah, excellent. So how did I get into all of this and what happened thereafter? Well, when I set up my little startup, there was no internet, of course, because it was 1990. We did fax shots, but then technology improved a bit and we started using WinFax Pro. And then bear in mind that I don't think even Windows was out then. Roll the clocks forward, went out in 1996. In fact, I had a really hard time. We went around delivering leaflets and you name it. You know, we found some financiers in that time when it was real recession, depths of recession, 15% interest rates, property markets had crashed 30% in a year. It was horrible. You know, you think it's bad now. It was much worse then. People have got very distant, sort of short memories. But we would go around. We found a company that did finance on guest houses, and we went around Yarmouth in the freezing cold because we couldn't afford the stamps to do the mail shots. So we knocked on the door and pretended we were delivering it personally because it was so important and all that sort of stuff. And life was very, very tough. I went from making 38,000 a year, basic plus bonuses, to our first year turnover of being 38,000 between two of us. And actually, basically, I don't know how we got through there. My parents guaranteed an overdraft facility for me. They'd just bought their house in Kings Lynn. That had gone up a bit in value, so they were kind of okay. But had I have thrown the towel in, which many, many times I really thought of doing, not only would I have gone bankrupt, but I'd have probably taken my parents with me. So I've kind of had to succeed. So 1996 came along. The invention of buy-to-let came along. I'd started realising during those tough years that there were people making a lot of money in property, and I'd started studying that. And all through this period of time, I was exposed to some fantastic people who taught me the mindset of sales psychology. And I really, really studied that. And I would look for the thinking behind the results as opposed to the results. And that's one lesson I can tell you. It didn't go in with me. It took me a few years to actually understand that. But chase the thinking behind the results rather than the results. So what are your customers thinking rather than what are you thinking what your customers want? So come 1996, Arla invented buy-to-let. We started doing a little bit better. And I'd started making some money again. I'd learned how these property investors were making money during the recession. You know, buying properties, terraced houses for 20, 25 grand, spending 5 grand on them, valuing them at 40 at that point in time, remortgaging them for 75% of value, getting all their cash back out and doing it again and again and again. And one of my clients bought 700 properties in a year, and I thought, I've got to make enough money to be able to do that. I've got to think how he thinks. I've got to be able to do what he does, and then I'll get the same results. So that's what I did, and so I bought my second property. The first one was 89, second one was 96, and every time I had a little bit of spare money, I bought another property. I recruited. It's another thing that I realised. I worked on very much an affiliate business model. It was commission only. Eventually, I was able to sell these packages as franchises to people for 10 grand a piece. But in the early days, it was commission only, and the only tool I had was the gift of the gab and the ability to inspire people that they could do what I was doing. And you know, I'm in my mid-20s and I've now got 5 houses and that sort of stuff. So I actually inspired people to follow me on that basis. Roll the clocks forward a little bit more. We've started advertising. We've got a 10 grand a month marketing budget now and a few more staff. And I had a young lady called Lindsay that was working for me. Late 90s, can't remember exactly when Dreamweaver came out. You guys will remember that. I built my own website on Dreamweaver. And Lindsay said to me, why don't we just take a little bit of that marketing budget and spend it on making the website a bit better? Oh, what's wrong with the website? It's fine, I built it. and it was pretty crap, but it served its purpose at the time. And we started to do that, and that's when I started to learn about a little bit about SEO. We kind of did all these grey hat, black hat SEO tricks which you could get away with in 2000, and the business started to grow. And my psychology of that business was very simple. It was just went back to chase the thinking behind the results. So what are people looking for? Well, they're looking, if they've decided on buying a property for investment, they want the finance quick. So give them the quote engine online, and we were the first people to develop a quote engine. So 2000, it just went boom. And we had a massive recruitment campaign, and it started to go really, really well, and I started to buy lots and lots and lots more houses. By 2003, there were 990 websites that were using our affiliate model. So Fish4, Exbridge, and many, many others were using our tool to provide buy-to-let mortgages and online quotations online, because we were still the only one in 2003, pretty much. And the technology still is there now and is still ahead of the competition, even now. But there was 990 websites doing that, and every single one of them was indexed separately. So they'd all done their own SEO, even though it was the same content. Well, of course, Google changed the algorithm in 2003 to spot plagiarism, and we went from having, if you search buy-to-let mortgages, we used to have 990 websites in the top 1,000, we went down to 1. So 2003 was a very, very tough time for us. But we got around it. Those people were still getting their people coming to their site. Fish4 was still developing well at that time, and so on. And the business continued to grow. The buy-to-let boom happened, of course. Property market was kind of doing that. And times were wonderful. 2008, we'd then got 300 fee earners working for us. As I said, generating 30 million a year, £7 million worth of net profit. Living a wonderful life. You know, I had the 7 supercars. I remember Stephen coming for a test drive in the Ferrari and the Bentley and all the different cars that we had at that time. And it was wonderful. And big lesson learned from that is it's great fun, but do it in moderation. Because I kind of really went to town on the midlife crisis. So, cost me my last marriage, but I've done far better for myself. And Svetlana's in here somewhere. Where is Svetlana? She's hiding. There she is. There she is. I've been married for 4 weeks this week, by the way. So, thank you. Thank you. So, 2009 came along. Some of the franchisees turned rogue. We spotted it, we reported it, the FSA gave us a pat on the back, the police thought we were absolutely fantastic, and one of the buy-to-let lenders was taken over by another company, decided that they didn't want to deal with us, they wanted to exit the market. It was the easy way to shrink by taking out the biggest player. And I decided that I was absolutely sick and fed up of all of this, and I was going to go and sit on the beach in Florida. So we actually put the business into hibernation. So Money Centre still exists, never went bankrupt or anything like that, but it kind of went from hero to zero pretty much overnight. And that's when Stephen and I parted company, but have still remained very good friends, as have most of the people that ever worked for the Money Centre. I think you'll agree, Stephen. So 2009, retired, 41 years of age. What do you do? Well, having kind of achieved that level of success and worked the hours that I've heard the entrepreneurs in here talking about, 16 hours a day, it kind of creates a mindset. And you've probably asked yourself, why do people like Richard Branson still work? Yeah? Why does Alan Sugar still do what he does? And the only answer I can give to you is that mindset sticks with you. It will never, ever go away for the rest of your life. Yeah? So get off the treadmill now, or be doing this when you're 70 years old. Yeah? Because that's what it's going to be like, I can assure you. Well, I don't know about 44 anyway. Before I go on to tell you about the blogging story, I want to teach you a little, or show you a little bit about change that somebody once showed me. Can I ask you just to lock your hands together like that? Okay? And just sort of squeeze them together. Look where your thumb is. If your left thumb is over the right thumb, apparently, so psychologists say, you are the best lovers and most sexually active. So, Lana, don't change it now. Don't change it now. And if your right thumb is over your left thumb, for those of you who changed, it actually means you're more likely to be entrepreneurial and more successful. Did anybody have the two thumbs together? You did? You had the two thumbs like that? Originally. I'll tell you what that means later. It means there's always one awkward side, because actually, I don't know what that means. Right, what I want you to do, take your hands apart again and put them together again, but differently. I want you to put it together so it's a notch above. So if you were like that before, move them up a notch. How does that feel? Awkward? Bit uncomfortable? Yeah? Take them apart again just for a second. Let me ask you a question. How many people in this room would like to be at least 5% more successful in 2013? We're coming up to a new year. In at least one area of your life. Just a quick show of hands. Okay. Pretty much everybody. Put your hands back together again. Clasp your hands back together again. Okay. What you've got to realise is, doesn't matter what you learn, it's so easy to go back to what you know. Did you put them back to the same way, or did you put them back a notch together? You put it together the new way. Well done. I bet very few of you did. Okay, 2009's come along, sat on a beach, bored. What do? What can you do to take up loads and loads of time that you actually love doing? Well, I'd had 50,000 clients at the Money Centre. So to give myself a little test, I actually did two things. I failed miserably on one because I started a YouTube channel and told them I was going to do a new YouTube video every day, and then gave up after about 2 weeks. And then the other one was a blog. And I'd never done a blog. I knew a fair bit about SEO, because SEO is simply understanding the mindset of people, in my mind. So I invited all 50,000 people to follow the blog, and 10,000 did. And then it was simply a case of giving them the technology. I had a few ideas, a few startup ideas within a hobby. Blew about £500,000 on some of them that didn't work. But nevertheless, the blog became successful. And it was simply a case of just listening to other people, and then going back to what I said right at the very beginning of this, which was trying to get into the mindset of the people that we're working with. Obviously, I started to research and understand SEO so my blog could be very findable. It is. If you are a landlord, the likelihood is you will have heard of it. Particularly if you're a professional landlord. Our average landlord's got something like 25 properties that follows the blog. But obviously we made it interactive with Twitter, Facebook, and all of the other things, and we just built a community. And it was just working with and engaging with people on a very large scale. And that's how I got 173,000 subscribers. There really was not that much magic. It was just a case of talking to people in their own language about what they wanted to hear. And, you know, if you'd have said 10 years ago there was going to be a techie event once a month with 65 people in the room, how many of you would have thought that was possible? But we're here and it's happening. And that's kind of the same thing on the same scale. So what did I do? Well, basically, I write my blog, decided that I was going to get a few non-exec directorships. So I work as a consultant for Leeds Prior and report to their management committee, so that's the law firm. I've written a book called SEO Made Easy. I launched it last week. I don't know, has anybody else ever written a book, by the way? I don't know anybody else who's written a book. Oh, you have? Excellent. I don't know whether I've done good or not, but I've done £1,800 of sales in a week. Is that good? Yeah. I wrote it last Wednesday, by the way, published it on Thursday, and kind of that's what's happened on it. And I promoted it on a property website, on my Property 118 website. And I really don't know whether that's good or not, because it kind of doesn't, just pales into insignificance with the other things, but it's really given me a buzz. It's like kind of my purpose in life at the moment. By all means, take a look at it. If you want to pop your business card over to me, I'll just send you a link to the blog I wrote. And bear in mind, this is all property people following this. The fact that I sold these books is pretty amazing. What's also pretty amazing is that I sold the book for £97 a piece. Okay? Now, you might think, oh, you can go onto Amazon and buy a million SEO books. What I've always done in life is I've actually tried not to be the cheapest. I've actually tried to be the best, and I've actually tried to offer a compelling offer that's a little bit different to everybody else's. So I wrote my book in 6 pages and gave it a guaranteed money-back guarantee, a total satisfaction guarantee. And by all means, if you want to have a look at the link and have a look at all of the people that have read it so far have left a fantastic testimonial, and nobody's asked for their money back. And one of them was the head of the Welsh, kind of the Welsh version of this, but it's a bit bigger. So I'm really, really pleased about that being a non-techie, because it's kind of just understanding what people want and delivering it to them in a simple format, and it gets followed. So kind of that's the story of my life. That's a little bit about the property. That's a little bit about the finance industry. I'm around for a chat if you want later. Thanks for listening.